I could hardly believe my eyes. Lying on the bed was the form of a little boy we'd raised since birth and loved with all of our hearts. His body was still warm, and it seemed as if we could just nudge him a little, as if to wake him from a deep sleep. But my little boy had fallen into a sleep from which there's no return. As I gasped for breath and fell to my knees in grief, the world around me descended into a darkness that until that moment I never imagined, not even in my nightmares. I wept so hard I thought I broke a rib. This was the darkest moment of my life. It was also, quite possibly, the most beautiful moment of my life. With all the lip service we might give our beliefs, there's nothing so exacting as to see your child die and then peer into the deep abyss of death. My son's journey, Mitchell's journey, forced my wife and I to step into that fearful night. But once I allowed my eyes to adjust, I discovered something in all that darkness. Against a backdrop of all that was black and frightening, I imagined in my mind little flecks of light, points of light that were always there. I just didn't have the eyes to see them. And the accumulation of those points of light presented themselves in my mind like a curious constellation. I would have never imagined my grief, my torment, would one day become my tutor, that the things in my life that hurt me had the power to help me. I started to see that each point in my life had become a point of light as I explored their meaning. And as I connected those dots in my life, I discovered that many of them not only connected, they intersected in the most curious ways. Like an ancient navigator who looked to the night sky for bearing, I began to see connections between all that happened in my life, and that gave me a new sense of direction. You see, in those connections, I found meaning. And in that meaning, I discovered wisdom. And what is wisdom if not light? Let me introduce you to some friends I met in the dark. Actually, you probably already know them. These are points of light. Some are good fortune, others are impressions, inspired thoughts, or intuition. Sometimes are the kindness of others. And then there are the hard things, the things you thought you'd never survive, yet here you are. These, among other points of light, shape who we are and guide the direction of our lives. And this moment we have together is a chance to let our eyes settle, to look for meaning and connection and see the world differently. These points of light will stir your sense of wonder and deepen your sense of self. They look different for everyone. Sometimes they're isolated events, and other times they connect. This inner work is about connecting the dots in our lives. And as you do the work of connecting dots in your life, you'll discover something beautiful about the universe and yourself and how everything's connected. When we step back, look up, or simply look at the world around us, we can find points of light. We can uncover connection, meaning, and purpose in everything. Sometimes it's dark only because we haven't yet opened our eyes. Now, it's natural to be scared of the dark, to be afraid of the unknown, but the opposite of fear isn't courage, it's curiosity. And as you practice curiosity by asking questions, you'll discover what I did in the quiet of a winter night, that what I once thought was all darkness was in fact a life woven in a tapestry of light. When you discover your points of light, that will offer just enough to light the path beneath your feet. And in time, you'll discover points of light you cannot yet see, that only the unfolding of time and experience will reveal. My struggle taught me a simple equation about life that changed me forever. It's a simple three-part equation. First, ask yourself if something pivotal happened. Maybe you got a new job. What then happened because of it? Maybe your new job became your dream job. Finally, look back in time and ask yourself, what happened leading up to it? Maybe you lost your job and thought it was the end of the world and couldn't quite see that that end was just the beginning of something much greater. This is the equation. The meaning we extract from that equation, that's not for me to say. That's a kind of math you and you alone must do. Oftentimes we discover that the difficult things we experience in life, however awful in the moment, may very well be the most important things that ever happened to us. Now let me share a story about meatloaf. This is a curious story about points of light and how they connected in the most interesting ways. Time was running out. I didn't know if we had 2 weeks, 2 days, or 2 hours left with our son. Mitchell's health was in rapid decline and he wasn't eating anymore. As my wife and I grappled with our horrifying reality, we could feel the cold chill of death like a winter wind to our souls. Desperate, we prayed for more time. During the same time, our neighborhood rallied around our family to offer meals each night so we could spend more time with Mitch. A woman recently moved into the neighborhood and offered to get us a meal. She goes to the grocery store to buy ingredients for a meal that for decades everyone seemed to love. While shopping, she received a distinct impression: meatloaf. She thought to herself, who likes meatloaf? And ignored the impression. But every time she ignored her intuition, the impression got stronger and stronger. Finally, the impression got so strong she couldn't ignore it. She put everything back and got ingredients for meatloaf. Not knowing our family, she was curious how such a meal, an ordinary meal, might be received. She comes to our door, knocks, hands Natalie a warm tray of meatloaf, among other things. We'd have been grateful for a sleeve of crackers or just a hug. Natalie walks in and tells Mitchie, guess what? Someone brought you meatloaf. What this good woman didn't know, couldn't know at the time, was that meatloaf was one of Mitchell's favorite dishes. My son ate like a king that night. Not only was that meal a treat for him, that same meal gave his frail body much needed nourishment, and that gave us the gift of a little more time. 2 years passed before this good woman shared her experience and impression about the meatloaf. My wife and I were in tears, and we asked, if something as seemingly trivial as meatloaf was conspiring to bless our lives, what else is happening that we can't see? The moment we recognize how people, places, and events connect and determine what meaning that has for us, we gain deeper insight into our lives. So let your eyes settle and look for points of light. You can start today on the back of a napkin, in your journal, on a blank piece of paper, or in a meaningful conversation with someone close to you. You can start by asking yourself questions like, who made me? I'm not talking about mom and dad. I'm talking about the people who shaped you. You can also look for experiences that molded you into who you are today. Start somewhere, anywhere, and search for points of light. When you do this, you'll discover gratitude for the past and present and develop hope and trust in an unknown future. This doesn't mean you won't hurt or you won't be afraid. You will. But you will also discover the medicine of meaning, and that has the power to not only help us see things, but see beyond them. Searching for your points of light is more than making sense of suffering. It's also about recognizing and celebrating all that's beautiful in our lives. And as you step back and discover your own points of light, you may discover ways in which you're being guided and held. I don't know what the future holds. I only know this moment with you, and I can see the points of light that led us together. And for that, I'm grateful. Perhaps no words have offered more hope than those of Sarah Williams in her work, The Old Astronomer, where she wrote, I've loved the stars too fondly to be fearful of the night. May we each step into the unknown, into the darkness, with not only courage but curiosity, to seek our points of light and find meaningful connections. Thank you.